Hey, 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 Fit Mama. Jen Oliver here, your host of the Fit Mama podcast. This is the work in to your workout. Hey, Fit Mama, and welcome to today's episode with the incredibly brilliant and inspiring Debbie Lichter. Debbie is the founder of Freedom from Food Addiction and the Freedom Embodied Academy. I absolutely love Debbie and all that she teaches because it's truly from the heart and absolutely follows in the Love Fit Mama way. She has worked with so many women, helping them with freedom from food addictions and other addictions, obsessions, and self-sabotaging patterns. So her information and the chat we get into today is absolutely going to inspire you to new levels, because we all have some level of addictions, as I've mentioned in my past addictions episode. And talking with her about her experience, about what she does to help women, about her beliefs and the way that she has come to know what she knows now is absolutely invaluable. So I know you're going to get so much out of today, just as I did, and I absolutely can't wait for you to dive in. So without waiting another minute, here is the beautiful Debbie Lichter. Debbie Lichter, thank you so much for being with us here today. I am so excited and inspired by you and your message and all that you teach. And I'm really excited to introduce you to the Fit Mamas today. So thank you for being here.
Jen, it is such an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it with you, Debbie, because you teach so many valuable things. And, I'm always curious, and I'm always learning and reading and checking into things. And one of the things I'm curious about is the education system. And, there are so many things that they do teach in education, math, science, etc. But somehow for me, when I met you, I was like, wow, she teaches stuff that they don't teach you in school, but this is so valuable. So I want to just, go right into it. What are some of the most valuable things that you are teaching right now? Because our audience of beautiful, loving fit mamas are, they are going to be so inspired by you. So what is the top thing that you are passionate about that you teach right now?
So I'm so passionate about teaching women how to trust themselves to make healthy choices, how to really feel grounded and comfortable in their own skin and be able to speak up, honor their yes and their no, really be able to speak up confidently and just be authentically all of themselves.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there are about 10 things I want to just kind of break down right away. Now, the first thing that stands out to me that I know is going to resonate with the Fit Mamas is around being comfortable in our skin. And, I know from a very young age, I witnessed my own mom not being comfortable in her skin, which rubbed off on me in a number of different ways. And, we're really conditioned to be uncomfortable in our skin. So talk about that. What do we even do?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Jen, because, I even look back at my own history and I look at, I don't think I ever really felt comfortable in my body or, I was always trying to fit in, always trying to do the right thing. And for me, and I think everyone can probably look back at their life where there were these really, clear moments in their lives where they're like, wow, I really got this message. Like for me, there were some very, very clear moments where I really got this message. I remember being a little bit, carrying a little bit of extra weight in 6th grade, and we had gone to, this little island, Catalina, to go snorkeling or something like that. And I was struggling putting this wetsuit on because I just didn't really fit my body, and I was feeling really, really self-conscious. And this counselor came over to me trying to be really helpful and said, maybe you want to try one of the adult-sized wetsuits. But in my 6-year-old brain, what I heard was, you're too fat and big to fit into a kid's wetsuit. You're too much, And a few years later, 14 years old, I'm standing at the beach thinking that I'm looking really beautiful and really cute wearing my little bikini with padded bra because I was really flat chested, you know, but, you know, thinking that I look really good. And then just hear this guy saying, wow, look at that girl. She's so flat, you know, and just saying, gosh, I thought that I had it going on, and I realized that I'm not enough. And I think that we all have these stories and these moments in our lives where we decide that it's not okay to be ourselves. It's not, we're like too much of the wrong things. We're not enough of the right things. We're not the right kind. And then we kind of like bottle that up. I don't think that a lot of us really, you know, for me, that took me into total food obsession and trying to be perfect and, you know, people pleasing and a bunch of other things. But, you know, I think we don't really always register that separation that happens, that split that happens with us just feeling, you know, free and comfortable and unencumbered and not self-conscious in our own bodies. And so I tend to speak with a lot of women, Jen, who are, you know, so worried about getting it wrong and who really want to get things right. Like when it comes to parenting, like really want to get it right, you know, and have a lot of self-doubt and have a hard time trusting themselves and are full of, you know, obsession or anxiety or other things that happen because it's like, there's just all this, because it's like this like deep down feeling of like, I think I'm wrong. Like I'm not doing something right. There's something wrong or something wrong with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think if we adopt those things that you just mentioned, like people pleasing and self-doubt, and they all come from these experiences that I'll label sort of as a blanket as triggers throughout our lives. Well, it's no wonder that we have these anxieties because we're going, well, he thought I was bad. And then, but that's, you know, that I thought I was good in this. And then, you know, we are constantly going through life with experiences that we have to show us that we should doubt ourselves and we should look external to ourselves for validation and all those kinds of things. So after years and years of putting on our best or being the person we think those around us want us to be, you know, where do we start? Where do we go when we just don't know?
Yeah, gosh, it's such a beautiful question. And you just spoke into it so well. You know, there's something, you know, you talk about, you know, depending on the outside for that validation. Like there's a phenomenon that I see with so many women that I call being caught up in the external feedback loop. And where it really is, it's like we've taken our locus of self-worth or of power even, or of value, and we have projected that into the world, and then somehow how the world or how people or how external factors, you know, interact with us or perceive us or receive us, that determines our inner experience, you know. And so it's looking outside of ourselves, like you said, for that validation or for that worth, or am I doing it right, or trying to control things in the external world to feel like you are safe and getting what you need on the inside. There's lots of ways that we get really wrapped up with that external feedback loop, you know, and there's lots of ways that then our boundaries get a little bit messy, and you know, we kind of hemorrhage parts of ourselves. We kind of hemorrhage our, you know, our power in many ways. And so what I really love supporting women with is how to move from that external feedback loop, which we can all say. I mean, I speak with so many smart women who've done tons of inner work. It's not like it's our first rodeo in this kind of conversation. So many women say, I know I'm not supposed to care what other people think. I know I need to have healthier boundaries here. I know I need to, you know, really stick to this, but then we don't, or that feeling that we just have to need things a certain way, like getting anxious if they're not a certain way. So I really love to support women on moving from that external feedback loop and to their inner guidance system.
Yes.
And what I really see is that the inner guidance system, it's a 3-part system. So you have your gut instinct, you have your sixth sense intuition, and you have divine inspiration. And those 3 things together form like a trifecta of inner trust. That when you are connected to and have access to all three of those areas, it's incredible, because in each moment, you don't have to have the answer for everything, because in each moment you have that internal sense, I have what I need, and I'm being taken care of, I'm being supportive, and I'm going to intuitively have the next step of what I need in each moment. And it's just as a way for women to be able to like calm down, relax, take it easy, and just really, really be able to rest inside of themselves.
What a great, great tool. Just even to know that. So I really like that, those three elements. And, I like those. I really want to kind of dive into each one kind of briefly, if that's okay with you. Would you be open to that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Totally.
So what was the first one? The first one was what was it? The inner GPS or sixth sense?
It's your gut instinct.
Oh, gut instinct.
It's your gut instinct. Yeah, I mean, we have a second brain in our guts, you know? We have the enteric nervous system, and you know this, right? And so we actually literally and physiologically have a part of our bodies that can operate independently of the brain in our head.
Yes.
And it is looking out for us at all times, but when we get that hunch, when we get that feeling inside of, that something doesn't feel safe, or someone doesn't feel safe, or something feels good, or something doesn't feel good, we get that sense inside of ourselves. And our body's communicating with us around that stuff all the time. Now, here's what I find is that what can confuse our gut instinct, our gut instinct isn't confused, but what our mind gets confused by is that sometimes we'll get like that surge of energy when we have a lot of fear, and it also sits in our gut. And so a huge piece that I love to support women around is really how to unpack, how to be able to distinguish when it is your gut fear talking, when it's your fear talking, or when it's your truth talking, when you get a sensation in your gut.
I think that's a really good thing to differentiate. You're right, because you can all of a sudden back down and never take chances, perhaps, in your life because really you're scared, but that is a possible path to find your truth. So maybe you can, tell us how we can really sort of go about identifying that, because you're right, that's something that probably a lot of us feel multiple times in a day, going, oh, I have this, I wake up in the morning sometimes with that feeling of anxiety or that pit in my stomach where I go, is this because I'm excited for my day, or is this because I'm petrified of something that I don't even yet know, really?
Absolutely. So I would say that when it's your fear voice talking, your fear voice is very loud, it's very attached, it's very clear, it's got a lot of reasons, it's got a lot of justifications. And it's usually telling you to do something that is going to keep you safe and within your familiar zone.
Right. Yeah. Comfort zone.
It's funny because people call it a comfort zone, and my clients know I never call it a comfort zone, because frankly, when you are holding back on where at a deep, true gut level that you're supposed to be, it actually gets really uncomfortable. Like we can get uncomfortable with staying stuck or the status quo. So I call it a familiarity zone rather. But
that's a good point.
The fear voice will always be. Pardon me?
I like that distinction, yes.
Yeah. But the fear voice will always be very justified and rational and loud and, that kind of stuff. And your truth voice is usually soft. It is unattached. You might even miss it. It's like a blip on the screen sometimes. You hear it, and we so readily our mind will just kind of swipe past it, because it doesn't feel like this great big burning bush experience. It's just this suggestion. But usually the suggestion is something that your ego does not want to do. And so there's a little phrase that I share with my clients, which is the extent to which your ego says no is the extent to which your spirit will grow.
Okay, so what do you mean by ego for those who may be listening and are not sure? What is your definition of that?
Yeah. So the part of our identity that is that is kind of living in this current, like our current mental construct of how we see things, what we feel like our identity is, you know, like, so my identity for many, many years was that I really wanted to make sure that I always got things right, and that I looked good at whatever cost. Yeah. And that people liked me. Like, those things were really, really important to me. Yeah. And so I protected that stuff at the cost of my own health, at the cost of my own sanity, at the cost of, you know, like, because that was part of what I was identifying with. And so there were many times where I would get an invitation to put myself out there, and I would, you know, those fears would be so powerful for me, like the fear of just, what if I get judged? Yeah. What will people think? What if I've got nothing to say? I mean, I never would have said, I would love to be on a podcast. I would never have, you know, done that, because I just would have been so, or I would have needed a script to script out every single word, because I wouldn't have that level of trust that it's just going to flow, you know. So whatever's kind of keeping us in that is all the ways that we are staying within the realm of what is safe and what is familiar. And that world, Jen, of what is safe and familiar might be a really wonderful world. Like, I speak with a lot of women where, you know, 80% of their life is really wonderful. They have so much to be grateful for. Yeah. But oftentimes there's like 20% that's maybe just caught up with some pattern, some holding back, some people pleasing, some, you know, struggling with their relationship with food, or feeling like they just can't be authentically themselves, not speaking up, not saying, you know, saying yes when they mean no, those kinds of things. And what that 20% does, even though it's a smaller percentage, it actually takes the rest of the 80%. It makes it hard to really, you know, for these women to really fully appreciate and be fully, you know, grateful and enjoy their lives the way that they'd like to.
I think so many of us can identify with that, knowing that there are parts of us that just get caught up in those old programs, right? And I like that you use that familiarity rather than comfort, because you're right. My life was so familiar when I was working as a personal trainer and going through the motions, and that became so uncomfortable for me. It no longer became a great place to hang out. So I needed to do something different. So I like that you delineated that. So thank you. I'd like to come back to the last point about the third part of that internal GPS. So we have the gut, we have the sixth sense, which we all can really kind of, you know, we've all got that feeling before. And then what's the third piece?
Yeah, so divine inspiration, you know, this is the piece that I hold so tender, and I also, people can get a little bit sensitive about the topic of their own spirituality, because it's such a beautiful continuum where each one of us connects in a way that's meaningful for us. And what I find is that each one of us, no matter if we say, hey, I have no relationship with that concept at all, or people say I am a very devout practicing fill in the blank, you know, you know, wherever we fall along that spectrum, Jen, we all have an opportunity to have a deepening with that experience of our own spiritual connection. And so what I often find, I have a tendency to speak with women who already are on a spiritual path. And what I share is that it's not a belief thing. I speak with women who have very, very beautiful beliefs and philosophies, spiritual philosophies and spiritual beliefs. Yeah. And I say it's not a belief thing. What it is an access thing. Because oftentimes, just like to give you an example, if my anxieties are having me look out into the world, you know, I get that feeling and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to handle this? And okay, I need to get this situation to look a certain, I need to get my family to kind of all do it this way. We're going to go into this, we're going to go to this event, and I need everybody to do it this way. I need my partner to do it this way. I need for the, I'm going to be hosting an event. I need for it to go this way. If it doesn't go this way, I'm going to freak out. We all kind of get in these control patterns, whatever that looks like, whether it's feeling controlling around our families or in our work, with our kids. We all get into this stuff, and you can kind of imagine, like, if we're holding on to things needing to be a certain way for us to feel okay, or people needing to treat us a certain way for us to feel okay. You didn't say it to me this way, or I need to get this off my chest because you're not doing this. All this kind of stuff. It doesn't matter if you have a spiritual belief, because in that moment, you're not actually accessing that truth. You're running on your own program of how you think things should be. And so there's a way that each one of us has this opportunity. It's like we might be getting that inspired guidance at all times, but if we're kind of blocking that because we have an agenda that we're trying to push forward into the world, then it's like we've got, our fingers in our ears, and we're not listening. And so that can hold us back, because it can feel very, very lonely, like that, even though there's a part of us sometimes that has an agenda and thinks that we know how it's supposed to be. There's also a part of us that wants guidance and wants direction and wants to know and not feel alone in all of it, not feel like we're the ones that have to figure it all out, and we don't.
No.
But sometimes we don't know how to cross over into really receiving that.
I love that. And you know what? I mean, again, brings us full circle to what I said at the beginning, which is you're teaching things that we just don't learn about, not only in school, but also in those religious environments where, doctrine and dogma and all the do's and don'ts are introduced. It gives it a very fear-based perspective. And I think what you're talking about is really just connecting with that trust that you are part of a larger order. And I can't even tell you how many articles and how many texts and books and things I read about regarding older adults and aging and living a long, full life. And the one thing that they all point to for the centenarians, those who have lived over 100 years, and those who are really thriving as older adults, it always comes back to two things. One being our social connections and relationships. And the number two thing is that connection to something greater than ourselves, right? Knowing that we have that connection to ourselves through love and self-love to some degree, but it's really about that connection to a higher self, a higher order, a higher God, Buddha, religion or not. It's just that connection that, you aren't alone. And I'm glad you brought up that idea of loneliness. And I want to embark and kind of go in that direction, because I sort of admitted on a recent podcast interview with someone else that, there were really times when I had young babies and I was in the mode of controlling things and wanting things to look and be a certain way. And it just, it's a lonely, lonely place to be. And sometimes you really are alone in that moment. And, one of the things that can stem from loneliness, in addition to, mental disorders such as, even just feeling anxiety or depression, which I don't want to label as mental disorders, but really just any emotional distress that comes from it, really can lead us to something that is in the realm of addictions. And I know that that's something you really help people with as well, is, addictions and patterns, whether it's being addicted to perfection, as you mentioned yourself earlier. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's coping, right? That's escaping. And I know, from my own experience and when my kids were a lot younger, I did escape into certain patterns that can be seen as addictive type behaviors. So talk to us a little bit about that, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm really glad that you brought the word addiction up in the context that you did, because over the years, I mean, I personally, as you know, have gotten free from multiple addictions and have spent nearly a decade helping other women get free from their addictions. And what I've uncovered and discovered on that path of just speaking with thousands and thousands of people is that all addiction is anything that we do to distract or numb ourselves from an underlying sense of discomfort and dis-ease. And that when we try to stop doing, we find that we can't. And so, what you're really pointing to, I mean, with that understanding, it's like, oh, so it's not, the problem that I see people facing when they are struggling with an addiction, let's take food addiction, for example, because that's the main addiction that I support women around, is that I speak with a lot of women and they'll come to me fixated on trying to fix their food. Just absolutely obsessed with like, hey, well, I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to count my macros, or I'm trying to only do this and I went on keto and blah, 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 and they want to tell me all their stuff and I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because you can't focus on fixing the thing, because addiction is like, it's like a game of whack-a-mole. You ever done that at the fair? It's like you bop the mole on the head in one corner and then the mole bops its head up in another corner. Have you ever seen that game before? It's like the mole just kind of keeps on bopping its head up.
That's a great analogy.
In all these little holes, because that's what addiction does. Because if you have the underlying discomfort or dis-ease happening, then it's just going to find another way to manifest. And so, for me, it went from binging on food to binging on Netflix to like overworking and to obsessing and, trying to fix my relationship or obsessing about myself and trying to fix myself or, like you said, perfectionism, or, it'll find a way to express itself. And so ultimately we need to address that underlying discomfort and dis-ease. And that really is, that's really what I do with women at the deeper level, where they get to be free. Because when you can come to a place of ease and comfort inside of yourself, you don't need to grab for anything outside of you. You have that. And that is what I realized, as I was along the path. I said, I'm not going to focus on supporting you around your food, supporting you around your work and around your this and your that, because we stay stuck in the mentality, like I mentioned earlier, that something is wrong or something's wrong with me that I have to fix. Something's wrong that I have to fix. And it's like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing that you have to fix, because you can't fix yourself free. Like, you can't be in the mentality of I have to fix something and think that you're going to figure out and fix yourself into freedom from that thing. Those two paradigms don't fit together.
It's almost like trying to fix it with what the thing is that caused the problem to begin with, or something.
Exactly. And just like Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the same consciousness that created it. So it's like we just can't. We can't fix it. We can't use our mind to fix our mind. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, addiction's all mental." I'm like, well, that hasn't been my experience.
Right.
So
well, and I really appreciate that definition. And it's like I sort of slip of the tongue, but talked about anxiety and depression as mental disorder. Well, and the reason that's connected is because the attempt to heal or fix the anxiety or depression is through a medication, which is really a Band-Aid solution. It's like saying, just don't drink or just don't do online shopping. Well, then it's going to show up in binge eating or whatever else may be. So I really like that. And I was actually just recently listening to a podcast interview with Gabor Mate, who is just an amazing addiction researcher. You know him. And he was saying, that exact thing. He was saying addiction isn't the problem. It's because addiction is an attempt to solve a problem. And until you figure out what that problem is and get to that trauma or that trigger or that whatever it may be, epigenetic connection, it needs to be solved at that root level. And I think in order to be free, which I love that you use that term, that, it sometimes feels so far away, but when you are on the path and you hit the right thing that is actually opening your eyes to knowing, yes, this is the way, which is, as you said, that internal compass, then all of a sudden it does truly feel effortless. Am I right?
Absolutely. And that is the pathway. I mean, when I support women, the first aspect, the first thing that we need to do is really just have them feel grounded and connected inside of themselves again, and be able to get present, because there's so much chaos that distracts us. There's so much, and we think it. I was just speaking with a mama just a couple of days ago, and she said, "I just have so much going on right now. I just have." There's just a lot of things, a lot of pieces moving, a lot of, and I said, yes, and that's an actual indication of the internal chaos that's happening inside.
Yeah.
And that's to say, you're just seeing a mirror of that, because there's an internal chaos, because one of the ways that we sort of split from that underlying ickiness or discomfort or dis-ease is we go into a distraction pattern, and the chaos and the drama that's happening in our lives is always, when you have a family, there's always something to focus on,
Yep.
And it can really keep us in that, where we're just so focused on trying to fix that we stay distracted from the other stuff. But then what that can do is it can then offset that feeling of resentment, or that feeling I speak with so many women. They say, I just want some time for me. But possibly when they get that time for themselves, they don't even know how to fully just get present and be easeful inside, because when there's that quiet and the stillness, that's where some of that internal chaos can start to bubble up. And so ultimately, yeah, there is this, this pathway that I guide women through that has them coming back into that place where they can actually be calm and present inside of themselves. They can regain access to their inner guidance system. And then what's really important is getting free from some of the things that are weighing heavy on you, so that you are not weighed down, because, there's fears, there's resentment, there's grief, there's lots and lots of stuff that really weighs on us. And all that stuff can create internal dis-ease and discomfort, and can keep us really caught up in that stuff. So when we're able to get free of those things, Jen, it's just so powerful, because that's when I see women emerging into the full, easeful, authentic version of themselves that they know that they are deep down. They've just been kind of obscured or blocked from it. Yeah.
Yes. And, just before we wrap this up, I want to kind of go on with that point, because I just love what you mentioned there about, feeling that internal discomfort. And, I talk often about meditation, and it's one of the pillars of the Fit Mama Foundations. And it's interesting how often I hear women saying, I can't meditate, or I can't stop my thoughts, or, and that's not per se the goal of meditation, but it's also that women often fear this quietness where they really feel into their body, and they start to feel these either feelings of anxiety or these feelings of discomfort. And, you as someone who has recovered from addictions, talk to us about that real and raw discomfort that you sit with in those moments when you're not medicating yourself or helping relieve in any way. And then what do you do? Please share with us.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, I remember feeling so like I wanted to crawl out of my skin. Like I was so uncomfortable. I hated, there was so much hate. Like I hated my body. I hated how I felt. Like there was just so much. And I also at the same time was incredibly exhausted, because the amount of energy that's required to essentially be moving through life, trying to fix and manage yourself and everything around you so that you can feel safe on the inside it's Herculean, the amount of effort. And when you're trying to then do that and be a mom and have a family and, you know, if you're also then working and you've got this, I mean, it's like there's a level of a sheer exhaustion. Yeah. And I was always feeling like I was just on the brink of getting sick. Yeah. And so what I did not have the capacity at the time to just, you know, sit there with my spine straight and my legs crossed and just like zen out. I mean, there was just no way. And what I started to do, I remember I would, and this PS, by the way, I mean, I was already a health and fitness expert when I got onto my journey. I already had a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of, you know, I was already like further along on the path. And yet I still had these things going on. So I remember I would get these moments of just lying down on my bed because I just didn't have the energy and I thought that I was sick and I wasn't able to nap either because my mind was too active. And so I would just lie on my bed and listen to, you know, like kind of meditation music or classical music or whatever. And what I would do in that time, and this was nobody guided me on this. This was completely serendipitous that it turned into what it's turned into because I just didn't have the energy to do anything else other than just lie there. And I started to just notice the different sensations in my body. And it wasn't out of any kind of strategy other than it was literally just I had no energy to do anything else. And so I would start to just feel these different subtle sensations in my body. And sometimes there was tingling, and sometimes there was buzzing, and sometimes there was weird sensations, or sometimes there was pain. Like I used to have a lot of throat pain, a lot of ball in my throat pain kind of stuff, or sensations in my stomach, and things like that. And so I would just notice them, Jen. And what ended up happening was that, and I was also a trained Pilates teacher, so I was already, this is the irony, right? Being somebody who actually helps people with mind-body fitness, and yet who's completely uncomfortable in her own body and disconnected from it. You know, like, I mean, this was kind of the hypocrisy or the, you know, like the sort of the incongruence of how I was living. And so I just started to do that out of sheer exhaustion and lack of, you know, being able to do anything else. And I would do that maybe for 20 minutes at a time, and I'd find that I'd get up and I would feel refreshed as if I had taken a nap. And that was what I did for a long time because I just didn't have the energy for anything else. And what all of that turned into is this was an entire, pun intended, body of work that I now incorporate into my Freedom Embodied Academy, that I actually show women exactly how to come back into their bodies and to be able to be comfortable in their bodies and to be able to be still in their bodies and not just listen to their bodies. Because when you talk about listening to your body, you're still thinking there's a me and then there's my body.
Right, the separation.
But I support women around connecting in and from their bodies. And that is a whole different distinction. And there's a whole pathway of that, of getting free from the pain, getting into, you know, a lot of women have a lot of trauma that's happened that has sent them outside of their bodies. So feeling safe inside of your body, feeling safe to feel your feelings, feeling safe to feel the sensations, there's a lot that goes into that. But the end result of that is that I was just saw a post on our private Facebook group from one of my dear clients today. And I had asked this question of what's next level freedom mean for you? And what's next level for me, you know, in a word, what does that mean for you? And she said, listening. She said, listening. And I thought, wow, listening. Let me just tell you, for us to be able to get to the place, now she's already been in my full program, so this is why it made sense that she was at this place. But for women to be at the place where they can actually listen, that means that they have had to cultivate the ability to feel safe inside of their body, the ability to be still inside of their bodies. You know, the ability to be able to trust and be okay in their own skin. There is so much that happens before that, before you're able to be in a place to listen.
I love that.
And so I want to just share with any woman who's listening to this right now is don't beat yourself up.
No.
You're on the end of the continuum where you're like, this is a challenge for me. I'm like, heck yeah, of course it is.
Yes.
It was a challenge for me too. It's a challenge for all of us. And it's an opportunity. It's an access point for you to step forward and say, I actually am ready to take a next step so that I can get closer to myself, come home to myself at a deeper level so that I can show up for myself, for my family, for my kids, for the life that I know that I'm here to live.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know that it might, like you said, there might be like a discomfort in stepping outside that familiarity, but to stay where I am is just simply too uncomfortable.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, that opened up probably another hour of this podcast. So we'll have to have you back on in a future episode because, wow, I love it. And I could definitely talk to you for hours because it is so true. And you know what it felt to me as you were describing that? It felt to me as what I described to the Fit Mamas as coming home. And that feeling that you're home in your body. And you're exactly right when you talk about not feeling safe, not feeling comfortable, not feeling as if our own body is our own. And that's one of the things I hear from Fit Mamas, right? I want to get my body back. And it's this distinction where they just don't even feel like this is theirs anymore. And it is a real process to come back home to that place where being in our own skin feels lovable. Debbie, please, before you leave us today, can you please tell us where can Fit Mamas find you and all the good stuff that you have to share?
Yeah, gosh. Well, what I would really love to extend to the Fit Mamas listening who are really connecting with this, I find that one of the biggest gifts that I can support women with on this path is coming into a deeper level of inner congruence so that they can be on that path of trusting themselves and of being authentically themselves and feeling like they can be safe inside of themselves and comfortable in their own skin. And so what I would love to extend to the Fit Mamas is an opportunity just to dive into a congruence activation call with me where we'll be able to really have a look at where they're at right now and make a plan for those next steps for them really getting on the path of deeper levels of congruence, of freedom, and just being able to be authentically themselves. And so anyone who wants to go to http:// I always like to say that first, allofyou.today can just grab a spot straight on my calendar. I've opened some times up, and it would be an absolute honor just to support those women who are really feeling the call to dive deeper.
Wow, that is really generous, and that is such an incredible offer. Thank you, Debbie. That is really great. So we'll put that in the show notes, and that link will be directly there. You can click right on it, right from your app. So thank you, Debbie, for sharing, and it was really, truly great to have you on here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow. I am so grateful for that episode with Debbie. And I'm sure you got so many things out of it as I did. I have to say my personal favorite is her talking about this idea of comfort zone and how she calls it the zone of familiarity. I absolutely love that. Definitely am going to start talking about that because it is so true. And that discomfort from staying in that so-called comfort zone becomes absolutely uncomfortable. And we all know that the good things come from really pushing out of that zone of familiarity into the unfamiliar, which, yes, is often scary, but is really where the true love and living of this life reside. So I hope this episode inspired you to be living on point with your truth and embody who you are here to be with love for yourself first. Have a great day, Fit Mama. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Debbie Lichter, for being here as well. Namaste.